Number 7. Trafalgar Square. Come on down to Trafalgar Square. We got tiny police stations. It's a Rick and Morty joke. Little Brits? Come on, that's a great one. Back in 1926, strikes and protests were every other week. It's almost like, increase to labor and a 13% wage cut is a bad thing. Weird, odd. So workers in every industry all went on strike. They stopped working for 9 days, and most of these protests would happen in London's Trafalgar Square. So in order to keep an eye on things without looking like you're, keeping an eye on things in 1926, walking around smacking a bat in your hands, blowing smoke in people's faces, that kind of stuff. They do in Peaky Blinders, yeah, you can't do that. It doesn't really calm a crowd down. So instead, the police built a tiny, secret police station in one of the large light posts. Yeah, they're just hiding in a light post, just ready to tackle someone. Imagine a dog starts peeing on the post and then all of a sudden 15 police officers come out of said light post. I'd be so confused. I'd be confused for the rest of my life. It looks fake. It looks like a little information kiosk. Nope, just a SWAT team inside, ready to go. Number 6, Supreme Court basketball court. A court in a court? What is this, Inception? What's going on here? This is the Supreme Court, mainly referred to as the highest court in the land. Back in the 40s, this was the storage room for the courthouse, but over time, it turned into a workout room, being so large, I wouldn't even call that a storage room in the first place, right? But courthouse employees would work out there, and eventually some genius decided to throw up a couple of backboards, so yes, there's a basketball court right above the Supreme Court. Yeah, imagine hearing players' shoes squeaking during a trial. Your Honor, I believe somebody just got juked out. I don't know, that's what it sounds like. Number 5, Brooklyn Bridge wine cellar. Here we go. I'm not a wine guy myself, but I respect sommeliers. They all have that cool mustache and like to mansplain to you about grapes. Very, very good job. I like it. I like getting mansplained about what I'm drinking and why I'm drinking it. They have books about wine just stored in their head at all times. It's a very impressive job. They know everything about grapes, and they're also pretty cool. What a dream job. Wine is a lifestyle to many, so if you live in New York City and you're a big fan of Merlot, well, listen up. The Brooklyn Bridge connects Manhattan and Brooklyn, right? It was built in 1883, and at the time, it was the longest bridge in the world, until 1903. Chief Bridge Engineer John A. Roebling, as well as his son, Washington Roebling, cool name, they both worked on the building plans, and in order to help the city financially, after you just spent $15 million on a bridge, they included 2 wine cellars, one on each shore, as well as other chambers that could be rented out. Not a bad gig, not a bad Airbnb if you ask me. The plan worked, and over the following 40 years, wine was stored in the dark, cool granite cellars on both sides. Number 4. Mount Rushmore. When sculptor Gutzon Borglum carefully planned out his designs for Mount Rushmore, the iconic American landmark in South Dakota, he included a hidden room. The room's purpose was to ideally be a time capsule, right? In a titanium vault full of records telling the story of Mount Rushmore's construction and all that American stuff. So it doesn't get lost thousands of years in the future. Now, I think carving presidents' faces into the sacred land of natives was enough, but sure, let's add a vault. The Hall of Records was meant to be this massive hall with an 800-foot staircase, bronze walls, a massive bronze eagle. He wanted future generations to look at this place in awe as we do like Stonehenge, right? Work began in July 1938, but after a year, the project was put on halt to, focus on the president's first maybe. Let's finish that job before we do the secret vault in the back. Borglum sadly passed away in 1941, so the 70-foot cave that was completed was now the vault. Yeah, not as big or flashy as he wanted in the first place, but still, there is a titanium vault behind the 1,200-pound slab of granite.
In our number 3 spot today, we have the Siwa Oasis. Siwa is an urban oasis between the Qatar Depression and the Great Sand Sea in the Western Desert. This oasis is one of Egypt's most isolated settlements, but it is the home to around 33,000 people. The residents have developed a unique and isolated desert culture and language called Siwi, but they are also fluent in the Egyptian dialect of Arabic. The Oasis isn't necessarily a super popular tourist destination, as the closest city is Cairo, and the Oasis is around a 5-hour bus ride away and is, of course, in the middle of the desert, but those who do take the trip certainly aren't disappointed. If visiting, you can enjoy some locally grown dates and olives, which I can only imagine are incredible. You can swim in Cleopatra's Bath, which is a mineral spring, and you can even stay at the Desert Eco Lodge, which is built from mud and salt. Tourism is actually a really vital source of income for the Oasis, so visitors are welcomed. Because of how isolated Siwa is, the culture and traditions of the people who live here really have been preserved, which would make it such an interesting and wonderful place to visit. If I ever get the incredible opportunity of going to Egypt, I think Siwa would be on the top of the list of places to visit. In our number 2 spot today we have Zabul. This city is located in Iran and it is an absolute hotspot for dust storms. The summer season is where the worst of it is seen, with what is known as the quote 120-day winds. This is when dust and other matter absolutely bombards the city, which is due to the disappearance of the wetlands as well as the extremely high temperatures seen in the region. These dust storms aren't just inconvenient, they're actually very dangerous for those who live in the area. So much so that every year officials hand out thousands of air pollution masks to help prevent the damage that these storms can cause to the lungs. In 2016, the city was named the most polluted city in the world by the World Health Organization, and a study in 2017 even found that the damage from breathing this air for 30 minutes outweighs the benefits of 30 minutes of cycling, meaning it is exceptionally detrimental. In our number 1 spot today we have the Galapagos Islands. Okay, this one is my favorite on this entire list because the story is just so crazy. Basically, the Galapagos Islands were pretty inhospitable to life, and you might be thinking, well, things live there now, so how could that be true? These islands emerged in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, sort of as the cap on still active volcanoes. That still active part is definitely key there. The heat from the volcanoes basically sterilized them, and not only this, but they were 600 miles from land. Everything that lives on the island now naturally found its way there. Plants with seeds who flew through the wind, animals that rode in somehow on a current, vegetation that came in on the back of a turtle. It truly is just remarkable. Of course, humans have interfered now and brought some different species, but even so, this story is just so cool.
Kicking off our list at number 10. Secret Cinderella Suite. Cinderella's castle at Disney World. Of course, it's the main attraction. Without that castle, it would just be a Canadian theme park. Of course, the castle is a smaller scale than a real medieval one, so it's a surprise to find out there's actually a real hidden suite in there. And yes, it's quite magical. You can sleep there and probably get bed bugs, I don't know. To get there, you'll need to take a pumpkin carriage elevator. And in the actual suite, you'll find 2 beds and a pull-out couch. Yeah, nothing more enchanting than a pull-out. Who gets that one? Let's draw straws. There's beautiful stained glass windows, a fireplace to keep you warm at night in Florida. But I almost forgot the most important detail. You need to be invited. Yeah, you gotta be important. Can't just buy your way in, right? Can't just get daddy's credit card and fast pass your way in that line. You gotta win a contest or something like that. I don't think I'd want to spend a night there, to be honest. It doesn't look very cozy. It's like one of those cottages you stay at and you're like, I'm scared, I'm really uncomfortable. This is a little too old for me. Number 9, DMZ. Despite what its name says and implies, the Korean Demilitarized Zone is perhaps one of the most militarized places in the entire world. It's like, hey, there's nothing going on here with military stuff. This is the location that marks the separation between North and South Korea, and it was established to serve as a sort of buffer zone between 2 countries. There are tons of military facilities in this zone, and only high-ranking officials are allowed in. You'll hopefully never see this. This is exactly what led to the creation of the Civilian Control Line, which is a line that created an additional buffer zone to the demilitarized zone, which is meant to further restrict access to any civilians or unauthorized personnel. So they added more of a do not enter. It's thick. You'll never see this. Number 8, Surtsey Island. This island was born in 1963, and by that I mean literally. It emerged from the sea in that year just off the coast of Iceland after 4 years of being formed by an undersea volcano. Yeah, brand new island, nice. Happy birthday, I guess? What do we do here? What could we possibly do with a new island? Well, I'm sure humans could find 1,000,001 ways to ruin it. Like, you know, put another Cinderella Suite in the middle of it probably. And surprisingly, we decided not to do that at all. Instead, this island was protected in order to allow scientists to study how ecosystems form and what happens when there's 0 human involvement. That's the whole idea. Yeah, not a bad call, right? This means that those who are permitted to go to the island have some super strict rules to adhere to, right? No touchy-touchy, no spitting, no crying, there's nothing, no one should know that we've ever been here, right? One of these rules is no seeds, okay? And no using the facilities on the island, okay? No taking, okay? You gotta hold it until 6 p.m. Have fun. Don't forget to clock in. That second rule is in place because one day scientists found a tomato growing on the island. And they were quite confused as, you know, how, considering what I just told you. Yeah, it turns out somebody had gone number 2 not too long past, and then, you know, a tomato came out because he had a little seed in his own right? You get it.
In our number 7 spot today, we have Wittenoom. This place in Australia is the home of a former blue asbestos mine, which is exactly what makes it one of the most contaminated places in the country. I mean this literally. The roads were paved with asbestos, even after the mine shut down in 1966. While the city was once the home to 20,000 residents, the population dropped significantly after the deaths of 300 former mine workers from mesothelioma. Apparently it was decided that it would be too expensive to clean up the town, so instead the government just declared it unfit to inhabit and took it off the maps. While most people have since left the town, it is said that 3 residents refused to leave and still remain in the almost completely abandoned town. In our number 6 spot today, we have the Danakil Depression. The Danakil Depression is a part of the Afar Triangle in Ethiopia, and it is a geological depression that came about as a result of Africa and Asia moving apart. The divergence of 3 tectonic plates caused rifting and volcanic activity. This place is the hottest place on Earth in terms of average year-round temperatures, and it is also one of the lowest places on Earth at 100 meters below sea level. There are active volcanoes in the area, there are salt springs, sulfur springs, and it only gets about 4 to 8 inches of rain every year. What I'm saying is that this place is stunning and has an incredibly rich geological history, but it isn't very hospitable. Despite that, there are people who call this place home. The Afar people have called this area home for many years, and of course that poses the question of how? The biggest industry in the Danakil Depression is salt, and many of the people who live here will mine salt with their hands and then take a 2-day camel journey into the next town to sell it. The people who live here also have to deal with an average temperature of 35 degrees Celsius, but sometimes it gets as hot as 50 degrees Celsius. Somehow they have overcome the odds and the obstacles and managed to thrive in this extreme environment, and it is said that this was made possible over the centuries by their ability to adapt to need less food and water than other humans. Honestly, it's one of the most remarkable things I've ever heard. In our number 5 spot today, we have La Oroya. Located in Peru, this town has a population of 30,000 people, despite the metal smelter contamination that has been seen since 1922. The smelter closed in 2009 after the company that ran it declared bankruptcy, but here's how that happened in the first place. The American-owned company ran out of money because they had to fund the environmental cleanup and the anti-pollution measures. Seems like maybe they should have chosen a different path. Seems like it didn't pay off to pollute someone else's air. I guess they forgot that there's consequences for actions. It still remains as one of the most polluted areas in the entire world, and the toxic metals have gone on to infect the water, the soil, and the air. While it is completely unsafe to live there, people still do, and sadly, they suffer the extreme adverse effects of it. In our number 4 spot today, we have St. Kilda. St. Kilda is the most remote settlement of the British Isles, and it is so isolated that it is often cut off by storms for weeks and sometimes even months at one time. That is most likely the reason as to why the previous inhabitants had developed a culture, economy, and government that was completely separate and different to their English rulers. Unfortunately, between missionaries and officials coming to the island in an attempt to change their ways of life that were working perfectly fine for them, their sources of income dwindling, births not being able to keep up with the death rate, and the immigration rate combined, as well as the inevitable disease-ridden tourists coming to their island for whatever reason, things for those who once lived on the island changed drastically, and it was decided that they would have to evacuate the island in 1930. Since then, people have tried to resettle the island, but none have remained permanently, likely because of the isolation.
Number 3. Disney's underground tunnels. Back to Disney, where dreams are made of, or something like that. In a place like Disney, there has to be room for employees to take a breather, right? That much time and character, all those high fives. I mean, I've done mascot work for a theme park before. It's hot, it's sweaty, it's gross. It's not the easiest job, but they're humans too, okay? They need to take breaks, clock in and out, all that jazz. Where does that magic happen, okay? This needs to be away from the public eye, of course. You can't have people watching as Mickey takes his head off to go for a smoke. No way, that's magic is completely ruined at that point. So instead, Disney has these hidden underground tunnels to move around the park without worrying about staying in character or getting caught in large crowds. During the early park days, Walt Disney himself saw a cowboy from Frontierland walking through Tomorrowland, and it just didn't make any sense. He's like, wait a minute, the timeline's here, he's got a hat in space? What? It took him out of the magic, right? More than fair. So he made 392,000 square feet of underground tunnels. And yes, they look as creepy as I'm describing them to be. There's zero magic in these tunnels. I mean, God, can we throw a poster up or something? Number 2, restricted Aboriginal art. While some collections are kept out of sight for museum visitors because they're, extremely scandalous in nature, like, one of those. Others are kept in secret rooms out of respect. We don't want people touching or messing with these things. At the National Museum of Australia, David Klaus, senior curator of the museum's Aboriginal programs, he wrote this long report explaining on the choice to hide these artifacts from history and why he does so. David himself has said, quote, "That is the responsibility of museums to respect the cultures they want to depict. The public use of Aboriginal secret and/or sacred objects is not consistent with this responsibility," end quote. He's like, yeah, because they didn't want them to be seen. It's kind of simple. In order to gain access to these restricted Aboriginal projects, these beautiful pearl shell ornaments, all these things, you need permission from traditional Aboriginal custodians. Again, no fast passing on this one. And finally, number 1, North Sentinel Island. Heading over to India, this island is the home of the Sentinelese tribe, one of the most forbidden islands in the world. But why is that? Well, it's located in the Bay of Bengal. North Sentinel Island is about 1,200 kilometers away from India, okay? It's pretty far out. And while most islands are shrinking or coming out of nowhere, this one actually grew back in 2004. The island lifted up a couple of meters during an earthquake, so the west and south sides gained an extra kilometer, which is pretty useful because the inhabitants on this floating cursed island are among the few uncontacted tribes left in the world. They have apparently been there for thousands of years. There's no sign of agriculture or even fire, yet somehow this tribe has continued to thrive. If we try and get close, they try and drive anybody away. In fact, sadly, back in 2006, 2 fishermen lost their lives because they got too close to the island without knowing who was on it. The Indian government didn't roll up to the beach and start interrogating locals and taking names. Hey, who did that? No, instead, it's now forbidden to go to the island. We're just gonna respectfully leave it be. Number 10, Medici Chapels. This one begins with an epic discovery. Back in 1975, the director of the Medici Chapels Museum in Florence, Italy, he was searching for a new exit route for visitors. He was trying to expand whilst controlling traffic a little more. We love that, we love big moves. Now, in doing so, the director stumbled across this trap door beneath a closet. And there also lied a few clues on the walls. There were sketches and drawings, the style of which seemed to belong to one Leonardo da Vinci. Not a bad find at all, my friends. This room was immediately closed for renovations. It was held a secret until 2020, so for many this is still widely unknown. I hope you've learned a thing or two already on this list. We're not even at number 9 yet, and you already know about some ancient trapdoors in Italy. There you go. Number 9. Metro 2. During the time where Stalin was in power, it's said that he instructed that an underground secret transport system would be built. It was known as Metro 2. This mysterious underground system is said to connect different administrative institutions, and it's even rumored that it contains apartments and different technical rooms. It's an underground city, basically. I don't know how to tell you that. It's sort of like a secret escape tunnel for high-level officials, right? Now, of course, it's completely blocked off to outsiders or the general public, and while the Moscow Metro administration denies that these tunnels even exist, there was an urban exploration group back in 1994 that claimed to have found the entrance. At this point in time, only one metro exists. On paper. We'll go find the other one, right? We can go find it. Some flashlights, maybe a spare weekend. We'll get to the bottom of it. Number 8, Whaley House. Located in San Diego and built in 1857, the Whaley House is an example of, why you don't build your house on cursed land. The site that this family home was built on was also the location of San Diego's first public gallows. Yeah, what a fun fact that is. Nice, rich history here. And apparently right after moving in, Thomas Whaley said he himself could hear the footsteps of Yankee Jim Robinson, who had previously lost his life in the same gallows only 4 years prior. After the family had settled in, they experienced a bunch of family tragedies, most of which actually happened inside of the house, hence the, cursed land aspect. As of today, the Whaley House is now a museum, and apparently the family members continue to haunt said site. Number 7, Ed and Lorraine Warren's Occult Museum. Okay, heading into Spookyville for this one. If you've seen Annabelle Comes Home, this next one should ring a bell. The character Daniela in the movie, she tries to communicate to a loved one beyond the grave, but in order to do so, she puts on a bracelet from Ed and Lorraine's Occult Museum. It's called a mourning bracelet. It's kind of like the Q-ray bracelet, but does the opposite things, makes you cursed instead of smart. Now, there isn't a mourning bracelet in the real life occult museum, but there is such thing as the pearls of death. And those are locked away, those are very real, those are lovely too, might I add. These pearls were added to the museum after a woman claimed they were strangling her on its own, which is absolutely terrifying. It's like those candy necklaces that we had growing up. and they'd get tight all of a sudden. You're like, oh my god. The second this poor woman put these pearls on, she needed everybody around her to help yank them from her neck. Now these haunted pearls sit in the Ed and Lorraine Occult Museum. These ones have nothing on Martha Wayne. Oh lord. Number 6. Naples' secret adult room. Scandalous Pompeii excavations. Ancient Playboy, here we go, this one's pretty funny. After the eruption of Mount Vesuvius back in 79 AD, the small city of Pompeii was sadly covered in hot ash. The ancient Roman ruins are still being uncovered today, but back in the 1700s, most of the city was excavated for the first time. And the King of Naples got the best of the best, right? First dibs. Most of the contents are now kept in the Archaeological Museum in Naples, but some have to be held in the secret room. Yeah, see, in the past, you had to receive permission from the king to take a peek into this sensual art. There were 30 brothels in Pompeii, so of course, surrounding artwork served as advertisement for said brothels, if anything. Just old drawings or carvings of people intertwined with one another. Yo, I found Dad's stash! Number 5. Svalbard Seed Vault. Deep within a mountain that sits in between Norway and the North Pole sits this vault that is more than 320 feet deep. It's just hidden inside of a mountain, okay? This vault holds a massive collection of seeds. It'd be the worst case for that other island, eh? They're like, no, keep this vault away, please, none of those. The vault that holds these seeds are made to withstand both man-made and natural disasters. And the seeds held inside are meant to be kept safe, so that in the case of sort of, a huge disaster or the end of the world arrives, seeds will be fine. Yeah, we're good, just some watermelon seeds will make it, but we're all doomed. Sick. The seeds kept safe inside would ensure the continuation of a wide variety of diverse food options in case things go south, you know what I mean? The door to this vault is only open a few times a year and just a few people are allowed inside in order to deliver seeds to their shelves. Yeah, just a doomsday vault full of seeds, that's great. Now I'm nervous. Number 4, Snake Island. This island's located in Brazil and it's one of the most dangerous in the entire world. Because of the name I just gave you, it's full of snakes. I don't think I have to explain this one. It is thought that Snake Island came to be when the snakes got trapped as a result of the rising sea levels, which then disconnected the island from the mainland, and then all these snakes got stuck here, and now it's just full of snakes. This is so horrible. The reason people aren't allowed to visit is obviously to protect humans who don't want to go and get attacked by thousands of snakes, but also to protect the snakes from thousands of humans, because we're pretty shitty as well. Just like anywhere else in the world, because of the lack of human interference, they're striving. It's actually a healthy, beautiful island. That's what the snakes said, not me. I don't like snakes, but the snakes seem to like it. They're having a great time together. It's like Survivor season 58, just snakes. There's a critically endangered species of snake called a golden lancehead on this island. There's about 4,000 of them, which is, of course, critical to the species continuing on. So let's not touch it. Let's not poke any snakes. Let them live. As of now, only a few select researchers and the Brazilian Navy, of course, are permitted to go to the island. Number 3, hidden Mickeys. I had some hidden Mickeys myself growing up, but these ones are a little bit different. We'll make it a little brighter now before we get to our top 3. Here we go. But Walt Disney himself said, I only hope that we'd never lose sight of one thing, that it was all started by a mouse. I got to thinking, which mouse? Stuart Little, the mouse with an ear on its back, that's iconic, or Mickey Mouse, the iconic 3 circles, right? If you're visiting Disney Orlando anytime soon, first of all, have fun, mad FOMO. Second of all, keep an eye open for the hundreds of Mickey Mouse symbols. They're hidden on the walls, the floors, paintings. It's actually kind of creepy. No one knows how many there are. In total, there's rumored to be over 1,000 hidden Mickeys. How many did you find? Maybe like 4 or 5, I bet. Probably hard to see. Number 2, Death Valley. Okay, and we're back into the bad stuff. We love it. With a name like Death Valley, it's gonna be pretty bad, right? There's a Death Valley in Zelda. That one's pretty bad. That one sucks. A lot of curses there. Death Valley sits on the California-Nevada border. It's known for, of course, its extreme heat. It's one of the hottest places on Earth. The only desert on the planet that comes close to the same level of heat is in the Middle East and Africa. It's like a different planet, Death Valley. It's horrible. Not a lot of people know just how bad it is. In July 2018, it was considered the hottest place the Earth has ever seen. For 4 days in a row, the average temperature hit as high as 127 degrees Fahrenheit. For all you Canadians, that's 52 degrees Celsius. Imagine it's 52 outside. Not even close right now and I'm already sweating. Yuck. Never visit Death Valley. So many curses. You'll sweat and turn into bones. Animals, carcasses, not good. And finally, number 1, the secret bowling alley. Okay, we'll end this list on a fun note because it's the weekend, okay? It's Saturday, we're all out here having a good time. The Frick Collection resides on the former home of Henry Frick. This is on Manhattan's Upper East Side. A handful of you have probably seen it or have been there. We have like the CN Tower and an aquarium. I'm like, we don't have any cool museums. This collection is a museum in itself. It contains paintings, sculptures, furniture, all historical, mind you, and all made from European artists as far back as the 13th century. The mansion itself is rather new. That was built in 1913, and of course it was also used as the Frick's family resident at one point. A rich family in the early 1900s. Nice, you already know there's a lot of secret rooms in there. But what was hiding in there? Apparently some fun rich family stuff, not a lot of curses. Like for example, a 2-lane bowling alley that was built in 1914. That's fun, we like that. Or a secret billiards room. Again, we like that as well. A wood shop, a little creepy, we'll kind of skip past that one. But how about this tiny diner? So good, we love secret stuff. I don't know, any secret? That sounds a little hollow there. I'm gonna check that out after work. Something's afoot back there.
Number 10, Snake Island. Located 95 miles off the coast of Sao Paulo, Brazil, is Snake Island. It makes you ask yourself, is that just a name or are there like thousands of snakes occupying the land? Well, both. What happened originally was thousands of years ago, the part of the land that once connected the island to mainland kind of disappeared. Over time, the ocean rose up, but the snakes had no idea because they're snakes. Yeah, they weren't really paying attention, it seems. Before any of these snakes got time to pack their bags, these snakes were stuck on the island, and decade after decade, that number only got bigger. One of the deadliest snakes in the world too, the golden lancehead viper. Oof. Yeah, there's over 4,000 of them on this island. From 1902 to the early 1920s, a few brave souls lived there and operated the lighthouse. But according to some local myths, the last lighthouse keeper was swarmed by snakes after he left a window open. I'm not sure if that's a real story or not, but I believe it after seeing all these photos. Yeah, that's scary. I don't like that. I don't like snakes. Number 9, Heard Island. Have you heard of this island? Right in the middle of Antarctica and Australia is this tiny little island. The Australian government has made it illegal for anybody to visit this island, so if you have some free time, a kayak and suntan lotion, yeah, don't even think about it. Why is this island forbidden though? Is this the one full of deadly snakes? The myth surrounding Heard Island is that it's occupied with animals that we don't know even exist. One of a kind. Oh yeah, just like Snake Island, only other fantastic beasts. We got some secret hybrids going on. Is this Jurassic Park in real life? Like, it feels like it's Jurassic Park in real life. The island looks pretty similar too. The island itself is quite unique geographically. Heard Island is home to 2 volcanoes and the tallest mountain in Australia. So there's plenty of space for hybrid animals to hide and look menacing in, you know? I love the idea of animals getting their own island though. 1 point for Gryffindor. Like, we have enough. Time to give back, you know? Except for the Snake Island, yeah. That one can go. Number 8, North Brother Island. Oh, brother. Located right between Rikers Island and the Bronx. The Bronx! Quietly tucked away on the East River, this one is much smaller than the last 2. North Brother Island was once home to a hospital back in the day, and you may be thinking, a hospital on an island? Yeah, this feels haunted already, Kyle. Yep, it is. For sure. Also, hospital on an island, how inconvenient's that? Like, I just broke my rib. Let's get on this rowboat and go check it out. Riverside Hospital was available for patients suffering from yellow fever, smallpox, tuberculosis, and it was mainly a quarantine zone. The hospital has since been abandoned. It's now sitting there just kind of falling apart, yet for some reason the island has been quite active. A body was found on the island, and a steamship called the General Slocum crashed on the island. There's a haunted lighthouse on the island, and they even have what's referred to as Coffin Corner. Sorry, Coffin Corner? Yeah, I'm all set, thanks. Dude, I'd rather explore the Bronx in the middle of the night than explore this island, like, at any time, you know?
Number 7, Lake Acid. Nice, a nice acid lake to cool off. It's also referred to as the gateway to hell. Rightfully so. The Danakil Depression is made up of boiling hot ponds that release chlorine and sulfur gases into the air. So you don't even have to take a dip in this acid lake. Just standing around it can simply kill you. So where does something like this come from, besides science fiction horror films? How does a lake of acid just come to be? What did we do to you to deserve an acid lake, my friend? This horrifying landscape is the result of 3 continental plates being torn apart. Yeah, it's part of the East African Rift System. So not 1, but 2 active volcanoes surround the Danakil Depression, hence the, bubbling magma lurking below the dry landscape. That explains it. 2 volcanoes. It's one of the hottest places on Earth for a reason. Active hydrothermal ozones aren't new per se, that's what Yellowstone National Park is, but you need a gas mask to go to this park, so we'll stick to Yellowstone for now. Number 6, British Museum's adult room. Better clean your eyes after this one. Some dirty stuff coming in. The British Museum, they have this long lost adult themed room, and it's exactly what you think when I say adult themed, right? The museum itself dates back to the mid-1700s. In its initial opening, the museum only let 10 people in at a time. Now, of course, it holds many more every day, but some collections not everybody can handle. It's not for everybody's eyes. In the Victorian era, the museum had a secret room for obscene objects, or objects that are deemed perverse. There's just a part of a temple wall that shows the dirty deed, just intimate ancient yoga, just carved in, right? Not going anywhere. In the collection includes a Roman terracotta lamp that depicts a naked woman on a crocodile. There's also a cabinet of obscene objects, which is just a cool name. Sounds like a Harry Potter book, doesn't it? Number 5, flesh-eating beetle room. Okay, enough talk about ancient butts. Let's move on to some weird stuff again, shall we? In Chicago's Field Museum, this one's chock full of secret rooms. I feel sick immediately just reading about this. The Field Museum uses hide beetles to clean its specimens. Real beetles to eat the stuff. Yeah, in order to get each of these carcasses ready for showtime, these beetles are on the clock. They're business oriented. They come in just a few hours, a small rodent can be completely cleaned. Nothing but bones left. How gross is that? Imagine this is where Peter Parker got his powers. Ugh, that'd be a different movie. Or Night at the Museum. That would also be a very different movie if it took place in here, in the old beetle room. Number 4, Vatican secrets. The archives, first of all, they're 53 miles long. There's around 35,000 volumes of catalog, secret catalog. The Vatican's secret archives are no joke. They're very real, but in order to see them for yourselves, it's gonna take some time. A lot of time. We don't have any time, really. The codexes aren't public, hence why I'm including them. Only highly respected scholars can access it after they're 75 years old, so you gotta wait a few birthdays. Their official purpose is to house the Holy See's official paperwork, and of course, it's a treasure trove of anything and everything related to the Pope, as well as these long-lost ancient documents, because where else do you safely store a letter from Mary Queen of Scots? The archives, that's where. Dudes are out here hucking cakes at the Mona Lisa. Yeah, we're gonna keep ancient notes locked up, I think. Humans can't be trusted, at least till after you're 75, and then it's like, okay, go take a look. There's also a secret room that contains the 200-foot Tower of the Winds, only accessible by these secret archives, so yeah. There's a lot of cool shit down there.
Number 3, Eileen Moore, Scotland. Ah yes, Scotland. Since we're on the topics of islands without any human interaction, let's mention this wee lad, shall we? What better island to visit than one with nobody on it, huh? Don't mind the sea curse. If the lighthouse didn't scare you, maybe you can manage this one. In 1901, a ship was headed towards the Flannan Islands, completely uninhabited, and on this ship we had one Captain James Harvey and one Joseph Moore. They were both heading to the island to watch the lighthouse, but upon arrival, nobody was there to greet them. Usually the lads before they were ready to go, haven't been counting down the days and all, they blew the horn, waited, and still nobody. The keepers rowed to shore and started walking up the steep set of stairs towards the lighthouse. When they got there, they realized the door was unlocked and 2 of the 3 coats were missing. Upon further investigation, he saw half-eaten food, a chair that had been tipped over, and the kitchen clock had stopped working. Still, no sign of the keepers. When checking the lighthouse log, however, the previous days were a little odd. December 12th, the second assistant, Thomas Marshall, wrote, quote, "Severe winds, the likes of which I have never seen before in 20 years. James was awfully quiet, and William, the 3rd lad, was crying the whole time." End quote. Yeah, there's some sinister vibes there for sure. Like, this is like The Lighthouse the movie, but like in real life, you know? Terrifying. No thank you. I wouldn't stay in any lighthouse, let alone this one. Number 2, Easton Beach, Rhode Island. Back in 1750, the Seabird, this big beautiful ship, slowly arrived and washed up on the shore of Easton's Beach. There was a big breakfast waiting on the table of the ship, the kettle was boiling on the stove, but there was no sign of the crew anywhere. Just an empty ship washed up along the shore. Creepy. Unlike the lighthouse, everything looked fine. No chairs tipped over, no frozen clocks, no signs of violence. It was oddly the opposite. What makes this story more creepy is that after the cargo was unloaded, the Seabird itself vanished overnight. Some believe the forces of the island took the crew, then soon after took the Seabird. What are your thoughts?
Number 10. Lizzie Borden's house. A bed and breakfast located at 230 2nd Street is home to one of America's most haunted and mysterious houses ever. Now, the Lizzie Borden house gets its momentum from the unsolved murder, of course, of Lizzie Borden back in 1892. She's one of the most infamous true crime figures known for killing her father and stepmother horribly. She did it with a hatchet. Just in case you're thinking, how did she do it? A hatchet. There's a twisted rhyme about the incident, but I'm not gonna sing that here. I'm not getting cursed on YouTube, but thanks. If you know it, hum it. It's pretty catchy. 1892, Lizzie's stepmother of 27 years, she was hit 19 times while her father, Andrew, was hit 11 times. Now, although Lizzie Borden was acquitted and found not guilty, the dark history draws in crowds, of course, every night for its nightly tour of the premises. Gotta make a buck off this horrible history, right? Netflix and, real life. The Lizzie Borden room, the infamous room where these horrors took place, is requested for the most paranormal overnighters. Yeah, some 1408 stuff. People staying overnight in haunted houses. Would you ever do this? Number 9. Leap Castle. Leap Castle, Ireland. Built around 1250, this beauty was one of the most lived-in castles in Ireland. It was built originally by the O'Bannon family. The classic happens, father dies, powerful family, no successor to the throne. This turned into a brother versus brother kind of deal. Things got shady, a lot of family attacks, nobody could get along, so now we got a castle full of ghosts. A popular sighting is 2 haunting ghost girls playing in the main hallway. Their apparition has been seen since the 1600s, but the most famous sighting is that of the Red Lady. The Red Lady wears a long red dress. She's tall and lean and she has one of her hands raised. That's terrifying. Can you imagine a ghost trying to block you at all times, just coming down the hallway? Number 8, the Ram Inn. An ancient old haunted inn. Nope, I could never. Also, this one doubles as a functioning pub located in England. Okay, that one I could probably do. That one I could maybe do. The inn has been owned and operated by many folks since as early as the 1100s. The ancient Ram Inn has been investigated by years of paranormal researchers. Shows like Ghost Adventures, Most Haunted, Ghost, you name it, all of them. People with, they've stood around there and pointed things. Haunted, for sure haunted. That's what they did. They stood there and went. Legend has it that the energy from Stonehenge actually feeds the property's paranormal power. Not to mention the backyard is home to a 5,000-year-old pagan burial ground. Stonehenge feeding power? I mean, that's one way to save on your electricity bill. Got any tips? Sans ghosts, got any tips?
Number 6, Falkland Islands, United Kingdom. Back in August 1980, a Royal Marine Alan Addis was seen for the very last time. On August 8th, Addis and a bunch of other Marines met up in the village hall, where there were about 50 locals there as well. It was a social night. The Marines left in groups at different times throughout the evening, but until 1:30 a.m., Addis was still there. People saw him. The next morning, all the Marines left to head back to base, but after sailing for 30 minutes, they realized Addis was missing. They called his mother and said that he was missing, but the next day, they told her that he actually might have drowned. Accidentally, of course. The sea and air search was underway shortly after, and after a few weeks, they looked and couldn't find anything. The following year in April, Argentine forces invaded the islands. This was known as the Falklands War, and during this time, the police files on Addis' disappearance were all lost. We think that they were deliberately destroyed to avoid British military deployment information being leaked into the Argentine hands. What do you think? Number 5, Poveglia Island, Italy. The small island of Poveglia has taken many lives, unfortunately. When the bubonic plague arrived there in 1348, the island had become a quarantine colony. So if you had symptoms, you were sent to this island to die. Unfortunately, it was horrible. Then again, in 1630, the Black Death crept in, and once again, the center of the island became a mass graveyard. The soil is 50% human remains at this point. If its dark history doesn't scare you away, the ghost stories surrounding the island just may do the trick. In the early 20th century, mentally ill patients were sent to this island, but the doctor that was responsible for treatments, well, he himself was a little mad. He would try bizarre methods, cruel experiments, unethical treatments, you name it. The doctor himself ended up going downhill mentally, and he jumped to his death from the bell tower. Apparently the bell tower no longer stands, but the soil is still 50% remains, so either way, yeah, it's a giant no from me. Too much bad history in every kind of way. You know what I mean? I don't want to visit. Number 4, Robins Island. Forbidden, but for reasons you might not have guessed. I figured I'd liven up the mood a little bit, so let's talk about the privately owned Robins Island. For starters, it's absolutely massive, and she's beautiful. It's not made of lava or snakes, just normal sand and trees. The best part of it all? No humans allowed. Yeah, aliens are like, yes! The 435-acre island sits off the coast of New Suffolk, New York. Many names have come and go when it comes to this island ownership, but as of right now, it's a forbidden nature preserve. The owner is a man named Louis Bacon. Even his name loves animals too. Louis Bacon has poured time and money into building this sanctuary and fears that if anybody else gets involved, the whole thing is gonna fall apart. Fair enough. Aside from that side quest Mr. Bacon is pulling off, Robins Island is home to the largest population of turtles in the state. Yeah, fun fact. So don't worry, he's not really alone.
Number 3, Bangor Fort. Back in the 16th century, King Madho built the massive Bangor Fort in India. Now the population of this small town was around 1,000, give or take. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful fort. Many considered this a luxury, and rightfully so. It looks like a set piece from Game of Thrones. But legend has it, Princess Ratnavati, who at the time was living in the luxurious fort, she was the talk of the town. Dudes were proposing left, right, and center, trying everything to get her attention. Princes of all over the world would come in and try and take her hand. Now one day when visiting town, a magician named Skindia saw the princess shopping for perfume, so he planned on using the black magic of Vashikaran on the princess. Yeah, he mixed it with the perfume that she was admiring, but it didn't work. The princess smashed the perfume, and as the bottle broke apart, the magician cursed the entire fort and those living inside of it. Only days later, a war erupted around the fort, and there were, of course, tons of casualties. So let's avoid this area forever, shall we? I mean, a magician curse, there's a war 2 days later, it's a fort. Those are hot words, I'm not going in that area. Number 2, the Humble Inn. Sounds very humble, sounds calm. The Busby stoop chair comes from 1702, and its curse arrived promptly after Englishman Thomas Bubsey had some issues with his father-in-law at the Humble Inn. Yeah, he also didn't handle these issues too well, so now he has to be hanged for it. Can't just kill people, Thomas, alright? Relax. He was hanged right near the Humble Inn, but a chair that was nearby is now said to hold that spirit of one Thomas Busby. If you sit on this chair, you are set to die in a frightful accident. A frightful accident. I don't even know what that means, but it sounds frightful, sounds horrible. Locals say during World War II, airmen from a nearby base came to the pub, and those who sat on this chair never returned. In the 70s, more accidents were also connected, but they still kept the chair around at the Humble Inn for some reason until 1978. At that point, the chair was donated to the Thirsk Museum, where it now sits haunted. So that's great. Imagine just like dealing with a haunted chair. That's a lot of responsibility. Not even a rocking chair either, just a chair. And finally, number 1, the Dark Mirror. The Dark Mirror, is that the Thor sequel nobody liked, or is that something else? The Dark Mirror is part of a fun little collection, the world's only mobile museum of the unexplained. So yeah, could approach in your neighborhood anytime. I don't know, keep an eye out for floating mobile museums. This mirror that travels with it supposedly doesn't shine bright like a diamond. Instead, this dark mirror has a life of its own. The museum obtained it originally from the owner who purchased it at a psychic fair in the Columbus area. That's a pretty solid place to get something like that. It checks out. The same owner said the mirror reflected horrifying visions when they gazed into it. And according to the museum, visitors also claim to have reported uncomfortable sightings such as their own corpse when gazing into the reflective glass. Yeah, I'm looking in, I'm like, no spoilers. I'm only on season 28 of Life, so I'm gonna gaze away. Number 10. Washington Monument. This is one of those things that I wish I got to do as a job, like YouTube's fun, but also this is pretty fun too. But again, I have a fear of heights, so there's no way I could physically do this ever. You can go inside the Washington Monument, that's no surprise nor secret. But did you know there's a secret hatch hiding at the very top? In Spider-Man Homecoming, Peter has to save his classmates. They're stuck in the elevator shaft in the monument. Now, in order to reach them before they fall, he has to kick through this tiny window at the very top. He almost doesn't make it. It takes like 3 good Spidey kicks. Turns out he could have crawled 4 feet higher to the top and opened this secret hatch. And then guy could have called it a day, easy. No web fluid nor powers needed, my friends. Also a pretty boring climax. Yeah, you don't need Spider-Man to clean the monument, just people who aren't afraid of heights. Then they pop out of this. They open the hatch and then they just sweep it. I can't even look at this photo, I feel sick to my stomach. Number 9, secret insect room. Okay, back to the buggy weirdness, here we go. If you're in Liverpool and you love insects, okay, very specific, but I have just the place for you. Inside the World Museum in Liverpool lies a secret room, and inside it contains 1 million insects. Yeah, I'm itchy just thinking about this room. They're all dead, by the way, unlike the other ones that I mentioned. These ones aren't ripping apart any carcassi. Carcasses? Yeah, carcassi, sounds fun. This collection began back in 1855. The 13th Earl of Derby. He's like, you know what I need? A cupboard full of shiny bugs. Let's start that. Thousands of specimens hide in this room, including the world's largest beetle and moth. It's so gross. I almost had a little saliva when I said that. It felt really gross saying that. The world's largest beetle. Oh, it's so gross. They're so shiny. Imagine Night at the Museum, but it takes place here at the World Museum in London. Bugs everywhere. Ben Stiller wouldn't make it out. No way. No way in hell. Owen Wilson? Little Owen Wilson? Toast. Number 8. Eiffel Tower apartment. I live on the 11th floor, and let me tell you, way too high. That's like 10 stories higher than I could preferably handle. Like I mentioned earlier, I am not a fan of heights at all. My legs get all shaky. Maybe it's because I'm tall already. I don't know, but it sucks. But this one here gives me a hard time as well. Above the Eiffel Tower, above the main observation deck, when it was completed back in 1889, Gustave Eiffel, the, Mr. Eiffel himself who made the blueprints, he included for himself a sweet little condo at the very top. This 100 square meter room sounds spacey at first, but it was full of gear, the elevator shaft was there, it was kind of like Harry Potter's closet in comparison to the rest of the house, you know what I mean? This room had a kitchen, bathroom, thank God, and a living room. God forbid you open a window though. Papers would be all over the place. Gustav's hair must have been messy all the time. Number 7, Kailua Papa. Heading over to the beautiful Hawaii for this one. I know one of our viewers is from Hawaii. Always wanted to go. Thing is, islands in the middle of the ocean scare the shit out of me. And also, haunted villages. Yeah, we don't like both of those combined. This was once referred to as the most cursed place on Earth. The coast of Molokai sounds like a great time, and from Google Earth it certainly looks like a fair weekend getaway, but for over 100 years, this was an isolation coast for patients with leprosy. That of course had to change at some point, and the laws did in 1969. But as of right now, no more than 5 people live on this part of the island due to its cursed history. Fair, that's more than fair, I wouldn't do it. Would you do it? Would you live on a cursed island? I mean, it's beautiful, you get a tan, sure, but you'd also get haunted. Number 6, the Conjuring Farmhouse. We may have a clear photo with the real Bathsheba Sherman, aka a real life witch from the Conjuring movie. Yeah, this photo is from the Perron family farmhouse back when it was the old Arnold estate. Now, if you've seen the first Conjuring film, it's based on those events that happened in this estate in real life. This was 1885 and this witch lived next door to the farm. And although we'll never really know it, many believe she's the lady in the middle closest to the camera. Also, the fact that she's standing by herself, I feel like that's for sure a witch, you know? Like the vibe of the group was off, everyone kind of like shuffled away from the witch. This is the real house. It's referred to by the Perron family as the old Arnold estate. So 2 names, gets kind of confusing, but it's the one place. It's located in Harrisville, Rhode Island. Aside from paranormal horrors, the Perron family also had to deal with financial ones. When the family lived there, a pipe burst randomly and then just flooded their entire business, so they had to sell off more than 85% of their land. Do you guys think the real Bathsheba Sherman is in this photo? The lady on the left there also looks a little witchy, I don't know. But who am I to judge? It's greedy. Number 5. Amityville House. You've more than likely seen this photo, either in the Amityville horror movie, or maybe you've seen it go viral since. The demonic ghost boy photograph. Also great name, really gets to the point. This photo was taken inside the actual Amityville house back in 1976. It was taken with automatic cameras equipped with infrared, and a photographer named Gene Campbell set the whole operation up. Gene was working with paranormal investigators at the time. He was working with Ed and Lorraine Warren. Yeah, the classic. Now we're getting it. Now we're, oh, this may be real. This photo was revealed 3 years after it was taken on the Merv Griffin show. Now, of course, it was a big deal, and many believe this is in fact one ghost of John DeFeo, one of the boys who lived there before that horrible 1974 event. What do you guys think? Elaborate hoax, or perhaps this photo is one solid piece of evidence that maybe, probably the Amityville horror house is indeed haunted? Number 4, the Queen Anne Brick Mansion. Heading over to Georgia for this haunted mansion. When I say mansion, also, I mean like Haunting of Hill House type mansion, not like Will Smith mansion. Know what I mean? No one's playing tennis in the back of this one. In Savannah's Columbia Square, the Queen Anne Brick Mansion was built in 1892 for William and Anne Kehoe and their 10 kids. After a few deaths took place in the house, the building was converted into a bed and breakfast. And since 1992, guests have reported hearing footsteps, seeing ghosts, and also sounds of kids playing. I don't want that in a regular bed and breakfast, let alone a haunted one, you know? Just let me sleep. Why am I hearing squeaks, like shoe squeaks outside? Maybe we're in Will Smith's mansion, maybe. Maybe they're playing tennis. Number 3, Grand Central Tennis Court. It's kind of hard to mention the Supreme Court without talking about the tennis courts at Grand Central. Yeah, those exist too. Let's do it. In the early 1800s, trade and banking fueled the city, specifically via railroad. Both freight and passenger. It was booming, right? We love trains, gotta get those train bonds. So come 1871, Grand Central now opens up, but the Vanderbilt Tennis Club opened in 1965. It wasn't even tennis either. This room had also been a recording studio, an art gallery. It hosted breakdancing, boxing, double dutch tournaments, you name it. If you ever see a sweaty guy walk out of a janitor's closet with a bunch of tennis balls, go in there, go poke around a bit. Something's going on. It's like when Spider-Man comes out of the closet in Spider-Man 2 with all the pizzas. Nobody asks questions. They're like, hey, where'd that guy just come from? Where'd all this delicious pizzas come from? Number 2, cursed music box. Okay, we gotta include another horrifying element from the Warren Occult Museum. We all love that in the other parts, so let's continue it. The Perron family music box. Remember this? Director James Wan wanted to use the music box in the first film, in The Conjuring, because mirrors and creepy tones make for great suspense, of course. But also, this was a real haunted artifact from the real house. Today, the box is safely stored in the Warrens Occult Museum alongside other items that look more or less normal upon first glance. So then you get close and your soul becomes possessed. You know, they're all haunted, never go in this room. This part in the movie actually scared the shit out of me. Any mirror scene, I can't do it. I just end up eating my shirt. And finally, number 1. Mayan underworld. Going back over to the ancient Maya, let's finish off strong. Back in 2003, quite recent, in Mexico, archaeologist Sergio Gomez arrived to work. The beautiful Mayan serpent pyramid, that's where he worked, right? What a gig. Out of nowhere, there was a sinkhole that just appeared overnight on property, but it was super close to the actual pyramid. So Sergio covered it with a tent quickly, obviously not knowing where to begin with this now stressful situation at one of the most historical sites on the planet. Sergio had to go in there and figure out where it led to, right? That's obviously the next question. Sergio had been working there for 30 years prior. He knew the serpent pyramid pretty well at that point, but what he found that day was hiding underneath him that entire time for 30 years. He got a few coworkers to lower him into the fresh sinkhole, so right off the bat, this guy deserves a raise. Let's do that, let's figure that out first. He was lowered into this secret tunnel, this ancient tunnel. This tunnel was blocked off purposely thousands of years ago, so there's lots of work to be done, but why was it blocked off, right? That's the big question. The tunnel was excavated for about a year afterwards, and it was determined that it was blocked on purpose to stop people from going back and forth. Because all of these pyramids connected to one another. The tunnel connected the Serpent Pyramid to the Temple of the Moon and to the Temple of the Sun. Now, it's one thing to discover secret tunnels and pyramid entrances your entire life, but to fall down another layer of secrets almost 30 years later, I don't know, it's kinda something's afoot here. I have a feeling we'll never know who really built these or why, but